That's actually where Manila Killa and I met. It was in seventh grade in Indonesia. So we go back a lot further than we might care to admit sometimes. We've had play dates before. My dad's party trick when he was growing, when I was like really little, he would teach me to memorize the GDP per capita, and he would whip it out at parties. He would be like, Asim, what's the GDP of Japan? Tell him, and his friends would be super impressed. Oh, I think if I hadn't started DJing at all in college, I probably would be working at a bank. You know, I gotta give it up to Chris. That's my brother for life. Manila Killa is my dude. And he basically was always the person to tell me to stay strong and like to keep my head down and like grind it out on Ableton, learn more.
Hi, this is Lauren Engel of Sidewalk. Talk to an I'm here with Hotel Garuda.
What's up? My name's Asim, in case you didn't know.
That was going on our Facebook and I was trying to see when we met. 2014, I think, or
2014.
13?
I think it was 14.
It might have
I feel like it was 14 or 15
yeah.
Because it was like, I think it was the first time we played Slake when me and Chris played.
Yeah, that was the first time.
That was the first time. Yeah, that's also the first time I met Sajib.
Yeah.
That same weekend. Like I think we all. That was like the first time our entire friend group hung out all at once.
Yeah, so crazy.
Yeah, it's weird how like that time just flew by.
I know.
I didn't even think about that.
And I'm gonna put some photos of us so they can see.
Oh my god, I'm gonna be embarrassed, but it's okay. Sajib, Jai Wolf, AO Beats, Andrew, he's alright. Who else did we meet on that trip? Aylin, Prince Fox, all of us kind of met in the span of the same. Well, I became friends with all of them all in the span of like the same few months. As soon as Hotel Garuda started touring, and as soon as me and Chris were spending more of our time on the weekends touring, it became quickly apparent to me that I had a lot more friends than I did have just at school. Like all these people who I knew online through SoundCloud or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, all just became really good friends of mine.
So you're originally born in Mumbai?
Yes, born in Mumbai. I lived there only until I was 2. And then my family moved to the south of India to Bangalore, now known as Bengaluru, is the traditional name. And I lived there till I was around, I think 9, so 3rd grade. I think I left at the end of 3rd grade and moved to Singapore. I was in Singapore until halfway through 5th grade, and my family moved again to Indonesia. And then I was there until I was in my freshman year of high school. So that's actually where Manila Killa and I met. It was in seventh grade in Indonesia. So we go back a lot further than we might care to admit sometimes. We've had play dates before. We had play dates when we were children. Yeah, I wish I had pictures of that because that would be more embarrassing to him than it would be to me because he was doing backflips and shit. Sorry, you can bleep me out.
And you guys were doing community basketball together?
Yeah, we were on the same basketball team. You know how like there's like a Little League?
Yeah.
The same sort of thing that you would do when like kids from your school and like other schools would join this like after school rec league for soccer or basketball or anything. Chris and I were on the same team, and I remember distinctly losing every single game except one that year. Every single game we lost, and the last game of the season we tied because the opposing team made a basket like right as the game ended.
Gosh.
We didn't win any games, but we didn't lose every single one. So. Small victories.
What do your parents do?
My dad works for Citibank. My mom's at home. She's a former economics teacher, so my dad works in credit risk management in Citibank, and my mom used to teach economics at the University of Mumbai before yours truly came along. And she was actually teaching for like the first few months that I was born to, like she would bring me to class and stuff a couple of times.
And your dad was playing a lot of, was it classic rock or?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I grew up on. He was, there's a TV on the
I know,
on
just
the street.
Completely flat.
Be right back. So when I was younger, my dad played a lot of Pink Floyd, a lot of Alan Parsons Project, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, Deep Purple. Were all big parts of my, or big memories that I have of when I was younger are tied to like music like that.
How did he even, was that common to listen to that type of music in Mumbai?
It wasn't, honestly, it wasn't super common.
That's kind of surprising.
But because his dad also traveled a lot for work, they had some kind of, they had a lot of cosmopolitan experiences when they were growing up. Like my dad's dad used to work for Air India, so his job also afforded him to travel a lot for work. Actually, when my dad graduated high school, you know how like when you graduate high school, you move away for college?
Yeah.
So like when my dad graduated high school, his parents moved out of the country because my granddad got posted out for work.
Oh.
So my dad's parents moved to Hong Kong. while he stayed in
No
Mumbai.
way.
Yeah. And he essentially was living the life of a young bachelor in college, which must have been really cool. I don't know anything about that. I've never, whatever. Yeah, so I think his upbringing was also fairly cosmopolitan. He traveled quite a bit all over the world. So he, I think, was familiar with arts and culture in other parts of the world, whereas people his age in Mumbai probably may not have been as in tune with it. Mm-hmm. And actually, like, that's probably like the earliest memories I have of listening to music were like Alan Parsons Project when I was like 3-4 years old. Yeah.
So you think you got your creative side from him?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Both my parents are both like, well, my mom was a former academic because like she went to school for economics. Her entire family is, they're all lawyers. So she was the only person that didn't do law. She went in for economics and commerce. My dad's family is all professional. They all work in business and finance and industry. So neither of them is particularly artistic, but my mom has a lovely singing voice. She always used to sing to me growing up. And my dad was a big influence on the music I listened to. So my sense of musicality, sure, came from them, I think. Yeah, my love for it.
How do you describe yourself back then growing up? Like in high school?
Definitely chubbier than I am now.
This is the first time I've heard.
Yeah, I used to not that there's anything wrong with being chubby, I just was a lot chubbier when I was a kid. And I think the baby weight dropped off finally at like halfway through college, dropped off. It was still baby weight until then. I played air guitar a lot. I would take like squash rackets and like tennis rackets and pretend to play guitar on them before I knew what guitars were and how to play them. That's actually like the imagery that I painted in my head was like me being a guitarist playing for an arena of like screaming people like the guitarists from Guns N' Roses, like Slash. It's like my earliest idols, right? And I guess that's kind of how I came into touch with music and like really developed a connection with it, and that informed my personality because it kind of made me attach memories and like specific points in my life with the music I was listening to at the time. So I think my personality developed because of music, definitely, because I think it's easier to relate to someone when you understand what music they listen to.
Yeah. Were you into school? Were you good at school?
Above average, but never amazing. I think, like if you count like the world average for the programs that I did IB, the International Baccalaureate, right? Which, oh man, I have flashbacks every time I think about it. But as per the world average, I feel like I was a little bit above average. That for my school average, I was like not quite there. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. And I mean, the people in the kids in the school next door to ours were like the top 1% of all IB candidates in the world. So there was a lot of academic competition, and to be honest, I always had to be like, my parents always like pushed me to do better in school, but unless I really wanted to do it, I wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I would only really like try to get grades because I wanted to impress them. Grades never really like, I should choose my words carefully here because I don't know who's going to be watching this, but I don't think grades were the ultimate like be all and end all for what I wanted to represent me. Mm-hmm. I don't think report cards tell you everything you need to know about a person. The same way that like transcripts don't tell you everything about a college applicant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so true. Was it difficult moving around so much? Or do you think you're...
At the time, no. At the time, I don't think I recognized it at the time, but like looking back on it now, yes. There were definitely like adjustment periods. Like when I first moved from India to Singapore, hearing spoken accents that weren't Indian, really threw me for a loop. Hearing accents that are spoken that were not like regular Indian people accents, which by the way, Indian accents are like very like pleasing to the ear. Yeah. They're not like what you see on TV all the time. But hearing accents for the first time was really weird. Hearing like English and Australian and Scottish kids and like American kids and people from all over the world. Yeah, I speak totally differently now than how I did when I was growing up. Going to school with a lot of British kids and then a lot of American kids and then a lot of British kids again, and then moving to college in America. I feel like that was like one of the big like shocks for me, moving around a lot growing up, was just like people's accents changing all the time and not knowing like where exactly I fit in that spectrum of accents, or like who was like closer or further away from my sort of cultural comfort zone. I don't know. Yeah.
And why did you decide to study economics, and was it math?
Yeah, economics and math. I mean, it was kind of economics. I've always had a passion for it. Like since I was like 12 or 13, I always had an interest in it. Like my dad's party trick when he was growing, when I was like really little, he would teach me to memorize the GDP per capita, or like the GDP of any country, and he would whip it out at parties. He would be like, "Asim, what's the GDP of Japan?" I was like, and I would tell him. I don't remember the number now. I would tell him, and his friends would be super impressed.
Oh my god!
I'd be like, "Here I am." I'm the party trick. I'm the kid that doesn't even know how to put his own pants on yet, but he knows the GDP of Japan. So I kind of had a familiarity with it growing up, because my dad and all of his friends, a lot of his friends worked in finance too. So I was kind of surrounded by that world. Plus my mom was a former economics professor, so I guess you could say it's in my blood, kind of. So I knew very early on that I wanted to study that. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it, with a degree in economics. And I thought, sort of in college, I thought I wanted to do investment banking. And then I realized I'm not nearly good enough at math to do that. And then sort of I kind of leaned towards the more creative parts of it, or the less sort of obvious parts of the finance industry, like advertising and marketing and product placement and product management, product design. And I did an internship at Citibank in Singapore between my either between my junior and senior, or sophomore and junior years of college. And they say internships teach you a lot, but I think they teach you more about what you don't want to do than what you do want to do. So I think is that a wig?
I know. There's just a pile of hair on the floor. It was so gross when I was walking past.
I think doing that internship helped me come to terms with what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And I think it made me realize that I didn't really want to be working in a bank or working in finance.
Do you think if it wasn't for music, it would still do business though?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think if I hadn't started DJing at all in college, I probably would be working in a bank, or like working in a financial organization by now. It's weird, right?
Yeah. And then you reached out to Manila Killa because you saw his mashup.
Yeah, so I remember when Manila Killa and I were friends in school. I think a couple of years after that, we added each other on Facebook, because I think Facebook happened for me around 8th grade.
Yeah.
And like all of my friends were in 8th and 9th grade. We all like added each other, and that became its own thing. And I remember he would post about this page, Manila Killa, which I thought was the cutest name. I thought it was such a cool name. And I would always like his posts and share his mashups and stuff. And I was very proud of him. Still am, for the record, Christian. And eventually I noticed that he was like making his own remixes and like actually producing and being more involved and more hands-on with it. And first off, I thought it was really impressive, and I thought it was really cool that he was sharing that side of him, because honestly, if you're a college kid that comes from an Asian background, there's very little likelihood that you get a chance to express yourself freely like that. And I think in the middle of my sophomore year or my junior year, I was staying on campus during winter break, and Chris and I were like talking about the Hard Summer recap videos by Glenn Jamin. We used to watch them all the time.
Good.
I still do. All the videos of Justice and Boys Noise and Mr. Oizo and Kavinsky, all those people who were like seemed like heroes, like really like idols at the time. Chris and I really bonded over that, or Manila Killa and I really bonded over that at the time. I had mentioned that I had an interest in making music. I always wanted to do that growing up, but I never sort of took initiative to do it by myself. And I forget if it was his idea or my idea to do something together, but the first idea we had to do something together was to throw a night in DC, or like to do a party in DC. Because I knew he lived there. I lived in LA at the time. Obviously I still live here, but he was in DC at the time, still in college. We wanted to throw a party and have some cool SoundCloud DJs DJ it. And then we realized what it actually took to throw a party. We were like, we can't afford this. I remember talking to the venue that we wanted to throw this event at, and they were like, yeah, the deposit will be $2,000. I was like, I don't have that money, man. I'm sorry. Like, I don't have money like that to just give you a deposit. And so that idea got shelved really quickly, even though we were both so excited about it at the time. And then a few days after that, maybe about a month after that, I think we were talking about like we were talking about White Noise, the song by Disclosure. And he said he was looking for an acapella, I think. And I was like, yeah, it would be fun to remix that song. And he said, I think it was either him or I that said, why don't we do it together? And like just make it its own thing, or like make some music together. And that's how it started, January 15th, 2015. Wow,
that remix is so good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And how did it get picked up, or how?
Oh my God, I remember this like it was yesterday. Like, wow. I think by the time it got released, I was in, I don't know if I was, do I remember like it was yesterday? I don't know. I forget if I was in Singapore, if I was back at home in Singapore, or if I was in LA when this actually went down. But when we released the first song, when we released the White Noise remix, Brett, our manager, had shared it into a Facebook group that Nick, who founded This Song Is Sick, was part of. And Nick posted it, and then it just caught fire right away. And I was blown away. First of all, I had this momentary future, like flash forward, where I would be like, this is what I wanted to do all along. This is literally what I've wanted to do my entire life, but I just didn't know it until it manifested itself in front of me, and with Chris's help, it manifested itself.
What year were you in college when that happened?
This is in the middle of my junior year.
Okay.
So this was like winter break my junior year. I was working as a photographer for a blog, and I was shooting concerts and events here in LA. Or just like I would literally just be able to. I only just asked for photo passes so I could go to these concerts. Really, like let's be honest here. That's what I was doing. So I could go to these places and like take pictures of these DJs who I looked up to so much. And eventually the transition happened from being a photographer to being a DJ, and then there was a shift in how people treated me and how I interacted with people, and it really fulfilled me knowing that I was doing something that resonated with other people, and that something that me and my close friend were making just out of our heads, just like manifesting it out of thin air, would be so widely appreciated, and just not necessarily like appreciated and talked about in a good way, but just consumed and like heard by people outside of my immediate social circle. That's like still the most surreal thing to me, is that every time we go to these festivals and we're DJing in front of all these people, I don't know any of them. They're just there because they heard some of our music and they thought it was cool. So they're paying money to see us play more music. Okay, cool. Like, okay, I'll take that. Yeah. Was
Manila Killa making most of the music early on?
Yeah, definitely. Like he was definitely the driving force on the laptop for I'd say the first year and a half, 2 years. And you know, it took me a long time to come to terms with the idea that it's not all about being a laptop wizard. It's okay to be, you know, more on the. It's okay to be less hands-on if you have to be. If you have to be less hands-on to make your point and to make your creative vision come across, that's okay. Like you have to swallow your ego a little bit and accept that other people might be better at what you're trying to. You have to accept that other people might be express shortcuts to get across to your destination faster than you might be able to do it if you were doing it by yourself. And that's something that me and Chris have this amazing chemistry, I think. Like, as long as we've worked together, we've always had this like dynamism between us where we can kind of put ideas across to each other and act on them, and both of us kind of get a feel for what each other are thinking for the song or this idea or this remix or anything. And it was always really nice to have someone else who you could trust to put the song's interest first, and to put the creative piece and put the art first. And anytime we would have disagreements, or anytime we would have not even conflict. Conflict is too bad a word. Like we never even had like arguments, really. Like the most civil disagreements of all time, probably. Even whenever we had disagreements, we were able to resolve them really quickly because Chris and I have such a big overlap in our taste in music that when we're pointing out references to each other, it's easy for the other person to get what the other person's saying. It wasn't until much later that I really felt comfortable in my own skin to produce music on my own. And I think the time that Chris and I spent together working on Garuda together, I think he first of all helped me grow in confidence in myself as a musician and as a producer, as an artist, because really I didn't have anything to fall back on in terms of classical training or, you know, in terms of formal schooling that would tell me that I'm good at this. Really, I was just winging it and learning on the fly, learning as I went. And I'll be honest with you, at sometimes it definitely felt like I was faking it till I made it. And I guess it's called imposter syndrome, right? Like if you feel like you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing.
That's interesting. You're actually not the first producer. Yeah, Gasly actually had that before, I think. Yeah.
That's exactly. I feel exactly the same way. It's like I definitely felt the times that I was useless, or like I wasn't carrying my weight, or I wasn't contributing enough, or contributing important enough things to the discussion or to the art. And you know, I got to give it up to Chris. That's my brother for life. Manila Killa is my dude. And he basically was always the person to tell me to stay strong and like to keep my head down and like grind it out on Ableton, learn more, always just keep doing more. And I mean, honestly, without him, I wouldn't be here nowadays. Or like without him, I wouldn't be here where I am. So I really have him to thank for a lot of the push and initial sort of drive that he gave me to start a career in music.
And what was the turning point for the split?
The split, I mean, it wasn't even like a disagreement or like an argument or anything that led to it. It's just because Chris and I both, or Manila Killa has his own solo act that is quite popular, and he, like any other act, wants to tour and, you know, play shows, and it's not possible for him to be in two places at once. Yeah. And when you're a duo, people expect you to DJ as a duo. And even though for a long time I was doing all the shows by myself, people would ask me like, where is he? Like, why is he not here? I'm like, well, he can't be in two places at once. I'm like, I'm sorry, he's not a magician. Like, and then after he finished college, after he graduated, we started doing all the shows together, and then that was going well for a long time. And eventually it got to a point where both Hotel Garuda and Manila Killa were touring so heavily that it was just, honestly, I wouldn't have been, even if I was him, I wouldn't want to do it. Like, I wouldn't want to have to like constantly tour two acts at the same time, where the expectations and the vibes are so different that you kind of have to be two people at the same time. I didn't want to put him in that position. Both of us wanted to push each project to its potential. And Chris and I both, I mean, still we're like very good friends. We were literally hanging out yesterday. And every time we hang out, we still catch up over music and talk about what's new, what we're digging, like what we're working on. And it's funny, we still have a lot of overlap in like what we like and what we're making. It's like, it's weird. Like, I think every like 3-4 months we'll like sit down for more than 10 minutes or whatever when we're like playing the same show or play in the same city and stuff. But we like talking to each other about what we want to do for visuals and like what we want to do for art and stuff. And so often it's like the same thing.
No way.
It's like we have so much similarity in our ideas, just like the execution comes out a little different. The way he envisions it and I envision it are quite similar, but the way he executes things are different to how I want to execute them. So in a way, the split was like, it was good for both of us to be able to enjoy creative freedom, and for me, first of all, to like get an experience of what it's like to have creative control over something 100%.
What was the decision to sign to Mom and Pop?
So Sajib Jai Wolf is also with Mom and Pop Records, and when I was talking to him around the time he did his first EP, he only had good things to say about them. I know the rest of their roster is incredible as well. Duke Dumont, Flume, Sunflower Bean, just to name a few, but they have a really sick roster of talented artists who I think you could instantly associate what each artist does with a vibe or with an emotion, with a feeling that the person evokes before you even listen to their music. Which is interesting. I never thought that I would have to be I would be the person that, you know, people would name and you could think of what emotion that music gives you. I never thought I would be that person, but I really want to be that person. Yeah. So when we first showed our demos to Mom and Pop, when Manila Killa and I were still working together, I wasn't even expecting them to like engage in us to begin with, because I thought they were just way too cool for us at first. And they responded like quite enthusiastically, even though the demos we showed them initially are like a lot of them never came out and never will see the light of day, but just to show that they had an idea of what we were trying to achieve and had an appreciation for our taste and our perspective on music was really, really cool. And they've been amazing to work with since the start.
And then I was reading a previous interview and I find it so funny because people always confuse you and...
Me and Sajib?
Yeah, but the fact that when you were at his show and someone thought that you were...
Yeah,
like,
I don't... Honestly, besides the fact that we both have brown skin, I don't think Jai Wolf and I look at all alike. And I think it's a funny like inside joke. We actually have T-shirts. There's only 2 of them in existence.
What?
Say Asim or Sajib. There's only 2 of them. But I guess maybe someday if we do a back-to-back at a live set or back-to-back at a festival or something, that would be funny to like make shirts for that occasion and just give them out to fans. That'd be really funny. But people actually got really confused sometimes. Like people thought he was me. People thought I was him. Like at our own shows.
Yeah, literally Jai Wolf was playing. So
Jai Wolf was playing. He was literally playing a set, and somebody comes up and he's like, "Why aren't you up there?" And I was like, "Well, the question should answer itself, my guy." Like,
just look up.
I don't know what to tell you.
How do you say your style of music has changed since the early songs you made?
Let's see. I mean, Chris and I both have such a big appreciation for pop music and pop songwriting. That our music has always been melody driven. It's always had an element of being able to sing along to something. And that's something that I wanted very early on, that my favorite songs when I was a kid gave me. Is like the feeling of euphoria when you sing along to a song you know the words by heart to. And from the beginning we had that ethos, and we've always sort of embodied that in our music, and our production styles have changed to reflect our taste in music changing over the time. And I think going forward, like since the split, I've definitely had to do some creative soul searching for a while to figure out really what I wanted to do with the project and what I wanted to use to make my mark as a solo artist. And while I still have tremendous appreciation for pop and mainstream songwriting, I think I'm leaning away from that sound a little bit. I want to show my appreciation for darker, more moody, more a little less obvious than what you might expect from pop dance to be. I wouldn't say my new music is going to be pop per se. There's definitely going to be songs that I make, but there's also going to be tracks. The difference between songs and tracks being like, this might sound really snobby, but I feel like a song is something you put on to listen to, but a track is something you put on to like DJ. Or like I think a common divider of the two is like, would you want to listen to this in the car on the way to work or whatever? Or would you want to be at a club and hearing this and just losing your mind? Or both. A song can be a track as well. But I think towing the line is important too, and like having a balance between the two. So that's what I'm doing with my new work, with my project, is trying to create a narrative and show that my taste in music is more than just banging drops.
What do you have coming up?
So I'm going on tour in 2 weeks. February 8th is the first day. Washington, D.C., you're up first. I'm going on tour all across the U.S. I'm playing 2-hour sets. I'm playing a lot of tech house, a lot of techno, a lot of weird club music that I've been discovering over the last 7-8 months. Nice. And I'm really excited to give people an idea of what is going on in my head as far as making music and what playing music means to me now and what it continues to mean to me.
What would you say have been your biggest challenges so far in life?
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah. My biggest challenges ever. One of them, learning Ableton. Learning Ableton has been really, really, really hard. I say has been, but I mean, let's be real here, we're all still learning Ableton. We're all learning every single day. That's something I enjoy about it greatly. I think swallowing your ego and swallowing your pride is really difficult to do in this industry, where you're around so many fluffed up egos and so many people who are constantly reminded that they are the best, that they are the one, they are the alpha and the omega of what it means to be a musician or what it means to be a DJ or whatever. Sometimes you have to sit back and realize it's not about them, it's not about me. It's about how the music that's made resonates with other people that consume it, that listen to it, that rely on it to make themselves feel happy. Like out there could be someone listening to one of our songs that's having a really shitty day, that listening to my song or listening to one of my friends' songs made them happier. And that means more, honestly, that if somebody told me that one of my songs got them through a really shitty day in their week, that would mean more to me than playing for a giant stage or playing for like 10,000 people or whatever. Playing for 10,000 people would be cool too. Don't get me wrong. I would love to do that. But I'm just saying, you have to understand that this art has a very personal impact on a lot of different people, and you're never able to control how anyone's going to receive it. That's why I think like swallowing your ego is important, because you have to detach yourself a little bit from the art. You have to make it less about you and more about the actual art itself. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Made sense in my head.
What does love mean to you?
What does love mean to me?
Yeah.
Damn. Were you prepared to ask me that?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to say to that? Love is friendship. Love is respect. Love is unconditional friendship and respect. I think, man, I've never had to answer that question before. So I might need to take a second to figure that out. I feel like it's support unconditionally. Even when someone's at their lowest point, you have to be able to, like I said earlier, not make it about you. You have to be able to remove yourself from the equation, understand that people have their own emotions and people have their own feelings that need addressing. And love means being able to put your own bullshit aside to help someone with their problems, and vice versa.
Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Not being Sajib. No, I'm just kidding. I want to be remembered as the guy whose taste in music is so sick that he got a bunch of people together to make amazing music and DJ'd for 8 hours at a time and played all kinds of music. I mean, people know, if you've seen me DJ before, you know that I don't just play house. I don't just play anything. I have an appreciation for all kinds of things, and given the right setting, I want to be known as the guy who you can count on to DJ anywhere, anytime, any place. I feel like I already kind of, this might sound a little snooty again, I feel like I kind of already have that reputation because I go back to back to DJ with all of my friends.
I know this.
And all of my friends are like, how do you have all this music? Like, how do you have future house and then future bass and then also like this weird like techno and tech house and like kind of all across the board? I want to be remembered as the guy who had an appreciation for everything all across the board and was able to curate vibes based on what needed applying for that day, for that set.
Yeah, I love that. This is awesome.
Sick.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye.